Hi, everyone. Dr. Tim and Hillary for another Dr. Tim's Aquatics podcast. How you doing this morning, Hillary?
I am doing good, doing good.
Well, travel season starts in earnest. Aquaculture conference in New Orleans this weekend. Next weekend, we're both in Denver for Reef Stock. A few weeks, Global Pet Expo in Orlando, and then Aquashella, Reefapalooza. It's gone wild. If you want to come out and meet us, hit Hillary up on our social media, and you have listings where we're going to be, right? Booth
Yep.
number. Yep. So,
I don't know about booth number, but I've got shows that we're going to be at. So,
okay. And the website, we'll put it up on the calendar. We love to talk to people, maybe score a little swag or something like that. And
hold on. Can I
what?
just say swag? You sent me a package that has some of the new Reptile Systems and ASF swag. That's cool stuff.
We got
That's
a lot.
cool stuff.
Yes, we've got more stuff coming, some plans. It's going to be a fun year. Oh, and we have products, folks. And that's what we're going to talk about. We do have pretty cool products. And we're going to talk about that today. The new ASF Reef Evolution sea salt. A bucket is coming Hillary's way, so she can do a video on that and show you all about it.
Yes, I'm so excited. And we've posted like short little clips of the salt. It's a game changer.
But yeah, and it's actually in our possession and for sale at our website. So let's talk about salt in general for a few minutes, and then we'll dial down into what makes the Reef Evolution sea salt distinct from others and so nice. So first, why do you even need a synthetic, and what is a synthetic sea salt? So there's a couple of options. One option is you just go to the ocean and wade into the surf and grab your own bucket or however much you want of ocean water. Or if you have a boat, go out a little further and fill some totes up with ocean water. And in fact, when I was growing up, living down in San Diego, I was kind of growing up, a teenager, when I moved down there and going to San Diego State. You could go to the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, the pier, and they had a hose right there. And it was because they had an aquarium, and they filtered the seawater through some big sand filters, and they had a hose, and you could literally drive your car, truck, whatever, right down to the edge of the pier, fill up as much as you wanted.
No way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they still have that.
Last time I was there, they did. Yeah. But
That's cool.
the problem, though, always with me, the problem, right? I'm just pointing things out. The issue
No, you got to stick with the problem.
The problem is that it's only sand filtered, or maybe you go, if you go out in the surf and you use a micron filter or something, well, that would get clogged up super fast, but some type of a mechanical filter, you're going to be left with all sorts of minute creatures, and several months of the year, that means red tide dinoflagellates, which we want to not have in your aquarium. Also, near shore water, the chemistry is much different because you've got the wind blowing things from the shore into the ocean. And if you look at some studies, you'll see like elevated aluminum levels in the waters on near shore ocean waters. To really get good ocean water, like say the Monterey Bay Aquarium, they have their intake way offshore, deep down. It doesn't have the influence of what, settles or blows in and start mixing in the top layer there below the thermocline. And so you want to be careful using nearshore water. And you think, we'll just go to the bay. There's lots of potentials for pollution. I was, down in San Diego at my dad's this weekend in Coronado, and the beach is closed because of bacterial pollution. So while it looks good and think I can just get free seawater, the old saying, beware of anything free. So for most people, I would say using real seawater, natural seawater right from the coast is probably not an option, and be very careful, because it's one of those things like not quarantining your fish. It'll be great for several months, and then it only takes one incident to wipe everything out. Well, how does Scripps, because Scripps gets ocean water, or Monterey Bay? You got to remember that they're not only sand filtering it, they're doing lots of other things. Ozone, UV, very fine filtration to treat that water. And in fact, I was speaking to a friend of mine who runs an aquarium up in Washington, and they're coastal, but they're on a lagoon. And the problem they have is that, well, first thing I think about Oregon or Washington is it rains a lot. And they have real issues with salinity control, because the fresh water sits on top of the salt water. It doesn't mix very well. And so you can have big salinity changes. SeaWorld in San Diego and Mission Bay has that problem. So beware of that. Another type of salt is dried sea salt. It's just, you've seen, if you've been to San Francisco Bay or even San Diego, lots of places where we used to get salt, and still do, is you have evaporative ponds. They sit out, the water evaporates, and as it evaporates, different chemical precipitates form until you basically get sea salt. Well, the issue with that is it's open. So you've got birds, pollution. When you fly into San Francisco, on the South Bay there, you'll see all those different colors, and those are archaea, a type of microorganism. And so do you want all that organic material, all that dried, or the bacteria, the archaea, all that potential pollution in your aquarium? And the answer is probably no. So that brings us to synthetic sea salt. And that's basically mixing chemicals together to replicate nature. And with everything, there's pluses and minuses. But this is a way to control the quality and not have the potential downsides. And that's what you always have to weigh, is what are the risks. And then when you weigh the risk, you sort out, here's the top 5 or 6, whatever risk. How likely is one of those risks to happen? And with seawater, and then what's the consequence? And for a lot of aquariums, using bad seawater, whether, it can outright kill everything, it can cause massive algae blooms, it can turn your tank into really something ugly and just cause you a ton of work. And so you have to evaluate that. With the synthetic sea salts, we mix, it depends, 7 to 10 different compounds together in proportion to match natural seawater in the major and minor constituents. You've got the major constituents, the calcium, sodium, magnesium, strontium. There's 7 major constituents in seawater, and the ratio of those never varies, whether you're in the Red Sea, at almost 40 parts per thousand, the Marianas Trench at how deep is that? Very deep.
Miles?
Yes, something like that. The ratio of calcium to magnesium to sodium to strontium does not vary. The salinity, the amount, but the ratio doesn't. That's why they're called conserved major elements. And then you've got your minor elements, and those can change a little depending where you are. And the debate has always been with a synthetic sea salt, how important are the trace elements? Some people say, well, they're not important at all. Others say, well, they're super important. The issue is that we don't know a lot about exactly how much is needed of these different trace elements. You definitely need some things. Copper, you need a little bit. Iron, you need a little bit, but what's a little bit? And then a lot of times, more than a little bit causes issues. So we're
Yep.
still learning about that, but we know enough to make a real quality synthetic sea salt. Almost all the major aquariums around the world use a synthetic sea salt because it eliminates the potential for lots of issues that can basically wipe out the aquarium. The first synthetic sea salts were probably formulated in there's been lab ties, but commercial were formulated in the late 60s in Ohio. The Cleveland Aquarium used to send tanker cars, that are on a railroad down to the Gulf Coast and fill them up with filtered seawater from the coast, and then train them back, by train, take them back up to Cleveland.
Yes. The shed that I have a book on like the history of the Shed Aquarium, and they used to do that.
Yeah, yeah. All those tanker cars, oil or chemicals or whatever, are full of seawater. Well, that got expensive, and that got, not very well quality control. You go down there and you get what you get. And it turns out that the Midwest is basically, used to be covered by an ancient sea that's evaporated, and there are literally salt mines, working in the salt mines. There are truly salt mines. Detroit sits on huge salt deposits, but there are lots of salt deposits around the world. And over time, those have become pretty good quality. And then with a little processing, can become great quality. With a synthetic sea salt, I don't think you're losing anything in terms of what you need to grow. We're learning more about micronutrients and organics and vitamins and different things that you need to put in. And that brings us to Reef Evolution by ASF. ASF is Aquarium Systems France. They've been making salt for nearly 50 years. And their factory is incredible. The way they manufacture the salt, transport the salt, mix, there's really no place else like it. And one of the things they really pay attention to is particle size, because I'm sure you've seen this, and maybe in junior high or so, had that where you put particles, marbles and beads and different things of different sizes together, and then you shake it. And what happens? The particles, even though they started out all mixed up, separate. And the smaller ones come together, the larger ones come together. Well, that's the same thing that can happen in sea salt. If you have these 8 to 10 compounds and they're different particle sizes, and you don't do anything to that, but mix it up and then bag it or put it in a bucket, during transportation, the compounds will separate. What that means is that what's at the top of the bucket when you grab, a pound of salt to mix some seawater or a cup or whatever, is going to be completely different than what's at the middle, which will be different than what's at the bottom. So you're going to mix this up, assuming that you're getting calcium, magnesium, all these things at a certain percentage or ratio, no matter where you are, top to bottom. But that's not what happens because the salt separates, and that's a problem today. There are companies, that don't do anything about that, and you can see that in the salt when it has those different particles. What ASF does is they pre-treat the particles and grind them so that they're all the same size before they're mixed. And they do, quality analysis on their raw materials. Then they treat them and make sure they're clean, same particle size, and then are mixed together homogeneous to make a nice homogeneous mixture. And all this is done by computers and conveyors and secrets and tips that they've learned in 50 years of doing this, and then bagged or placed in buckets. And the result is a very pure salt in terms of not full of organics and pollutions that we don't want. A particle size that's uniform, so what you get from top to bottom is the same. They add or enrich it with calcium and magnesium. So this salt that we're now premiering, Reef Evolution, is good for all types of fish tanks. Fish tanks, coral tanks, hard or soft corals, SPS, any type of reef tank. The salt will cover it all. What you're going to see, though, because this is another little, I call it a myth of the trade, the hobby, is that a quality salt mixes super clear, super fast. The faster it mixes clear, the better. And that's not true, because if you can just take sodium chloride, that will mix clear really fast. But not very many people want to keep their fish in just sodium chloride. You need the magnesium, you need the calcium and the strontium and other things. And as you add these other chemical compounds in the needed percentages, that takes longer to dissolve. Calcium takes longer, magnesium takes longer than sodium to dissolve in water. So don't be fooled by, a demo that, oh, my salt, mixes in 30 seconds versus this other salt that takes 2 minutes or 3 minutes. It's worth spending a little extra time, waiting a little bit for a salt to dissolve clear, but take a little longer. And that's what you have with Reef Evolution. It's not the fastest dissolving salt. What you're going to have, and you can compare these numbers with others, is at a specific gravity of about 1.024, your alkalinity is going to be 7.5 to 8. Your calcium is going to be 430 to 450. And your magnesium is going to be 1300 to 1350. So those are above the normal ranges. And that just means it's going to take, a few extra minutes to dissolve, but it'll dissolve clear. There won't be a bathroom ring, a smudge ring around the bucket or anything like that.
So you say that it might take a little bit longer, but not too long. Do you have it'll take an hour to mix, or 15 minutes or 30 minutes?
Oh, yeah, 15 minutes. But, there's some companies out there that were promoting, we dissolve in 5 minutes. Yeah. And your calcium levels are terrible and your magnesium levels are terrible. So that's the point I'm trying to make, is it's not a race to see who can dissolve. Yeah, no, it dissolves quick, but it's not an hour. It's like 15 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, that's not bad at all. Now, is there when you're making salt and stuff, if you go ahead and mix a batch of salt, you're set to do a water change, and then, I don't know, you forget you have to go pick the kids up from daycare, you don't end up doing a water change until 2 days later for whatever reason. Is the salt that's already mixed in that bucket still going to be good to use?
Oh, sure. Yep. It'd be fine to use. Not a problem.
Don't have to worry about it having precipitated out or anything like that.
Nope. As long as you've now some people try to, I think that they think it's less work, where they'll mix the salt in the bucket to a higher concentration because they're going to put it in the tank and then add just regular, RODI water, maybe because they don't have enough space to mix up 20 gallons. So they mix up 5 gallons at a super concentrated amount. If you do that, then you're going to have issues, because you can only get so much calcium and magnesium to dissolve. And if you're going to try to make a salt that instead of about 34 parts per thousand is going to be 100 parts per thousand, nearly 3 times, then you're going to have issues. Does that make sense, Hillary?
Yeah. Like if you're trying to make sugar in water and the water's not hot enough or something like that.
Yeah, or you're trying to just put too much. There's a solubility there. And what can happen then, especially in your scenario where you mix it, but then you got to go and you wait a couple of days, if that water's just sitting there, definitely things can start to precipitate out. And as an aside,
if you've made it, maybe keep that pump running in there.
Definitely keep the pump running in there. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And as an aside, what you should never do is add salt directly to a tank with fish in it. I don't recommend that at all. I've seen that a couple of times. People drain it down, They add DIRO water to fill it back up, and then they pour the salt right over the top of the tank, over the corals.
No,
Over,
no.
don't do that, folks. People are always trying to save some time, and if you don't, if you're doing a 33% water change or even a 25% water change on a 100-gallon tank, and you need 25 or 30 gallons, and you only got a 5-gallon bucket, you're short. What do you need to do? You need to invest in a nice, bulky, heavy duty, trash can with a dolly, and make 20 gallons, make 25 gallons, right, all at once, and then
Yes.
change the water. You gotta do it right. It's shortcuts usually get you in trouble. So
Make it easier for yourself. Coming from someone who used to do water changes on a 55-gallon by hauling 5-gallon buckets of water up 3 flights of stairs.
Yeah.
Make it easy for yourself.
And who's been cross country with a pig twice. I can just picture that road trip.
Oh,
anyways,
it's awful.
Invest in some good equipment, market big giant, not trash fish, fish tank only. Protect that and keep it clean. Get some quality pumps to move the water in and out of the tank. And
Pumps.
Yeah, you can
get a lid for your trash can too.
Yes, definitely a lid for your trash can. A planning a little bit, and a few pumps. You can make this easy and relatively painless to change water in your aquarium. Now, once you mix this up, because this is kind of a hybrid, full disclosure, I used to be in charge of making, quality control of Instant Ocean here in the United States. And there was Instant Ocean and there was Reef Crystals. Reef Crystals was developed for more of the reef tanks because we found that they need a few extra things. With Reef Evolution, we're just making one salt. And that does have some organic ingredients in it. We found that helps because, as we talked about, really an aquarium is just a home for bacteria that we let fish and corals swim around in. It's got 10 different amino acids. It's got vitamins. So it's a fortified salt. What the salt doesn't have, once you mix it up, it won't have phosphate, ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate. And why do you say those things? Well, because when you want a chemical, you're not getting just calcium or just sodium. It's a compound, which a compound is two different, your sodium chloride, magnesium sulfate, and there's different things you can choose, and some chemical compounds are cheaper than others, but maybe they're going to have a phosphate on there or nitrate or ammonia. I mean, you can do ammonium chloride, a little bit of ammonium chloride to get the chloride levels up, but you're adding ammonia to the system and we don't want that. And there are, terrible grade salts. You kind of, as always, get what you pay for. If you're trying to save a buck and get super cheap salts, there's probably a reason they're super cheap. And it's got to do with the chemicals that go in it and the grade of those chemicals. Now, this is also some, I don't know, Hillary, do I say false advertising?
You can say whatever you want to say.
Gotta be. That's
within
it.
reason.
Within reason. But so there's different grades of chemicals. There's industrial grade, which means it goes into some industrial process. And then there's food grade. So for that, basically it's the amount of inspection is the only difference. Industrial grade, I don't know the exact number, so don't quote me, but say they sample once out of 1,000 pounds. Food grade, they're going to inspect, say, 10 times out of that 1,000 pounds. They take 10 samples throughout the 1,000 to check. Then you can get up to, laboratory, reagent, USP, these certified grades. And what they're doing is certifying how much of the other that's in there and what that is, so you know exactly what's in there. So you get different purities, 99.9 versus 99.999 or 99.999999. And as you go up in purity, the cost goes way up because it had to be handled and tested a lot more. So there is no one that makes 100% USP reagent grade sea salt for an aquarium. No one could afford it. It would be super expensive. So don't believe all that marketing when they say that they're using this super pure certified blah 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 blah. That's not true. It's basically food grade for most of the chemicals, and then for the trace elements and things, yes, we can get into the higher purities, and it's fine. You don't need to worry about that unless you're buying a super cheap salt. And I mean, I've opened buckets of salt and you can see sticks in there and stuff like that. You're not going to have that with the Reef Evolution. It's a really nice, well-made, well-mixed, pure sea salt.
Yes, I cannot wait to use this stuff.
And the good part is, it's not the most expensive salt out there, even though it's made and imported from France. We know the market, we know where we want to be, and it's cost effective, and you're going to notice the difference using this.
Yes. And can we talk a little bit about, I think we've talked about packaging before, but I think the packaging on this, the buckets especially, is very unique. But also, can we touch on, if you are to order this, because things have changed in salt, like because of shipping prices. So for example, I used to be able to buy a box of salt that would make 200 gallons, but now the most I can buy at a time is 3 bags that make 50 gallons.
Right.
The same applies.
Oh yeah, because everybody ships, FedEx or UPS or one of the carriers, and it used to be not too long ago, like 3 or 4 years or so, that if you shipped ground, if the box didn't weigh, what they did is they charged you by weight. A 40-pound box cost more than a 20, and a 60-pound box costs more than a 40, but it was just a price per pound. And then they went to what's called dimensional weight. So they all have a formula, and they basically say, well, you're taking up space and we're going to charge you for this space until we're not. And what that means is that you take the width, the height, and the depth of the box, and you multiply that and you divide it by some number, and that gives you what they're going to charge you weight-wise. So you could take a box and fill it full of feathers, and it may only weigh, 5 pounds. But if it's a 12 by 12 by 12 box, they're going to say, no, we're not going to charge you 5 pounds, the actual weight. We're going to charge you 20 pounds, this dimensional weight. Then they said, well, if it's over 50 pounds now, we're going to charge you a surcharge, and it's expensive. So that's become the issue, is that the traditional 200-gallon box, which is 4 50-pound bags, weighs about 62 or 64 pounds. So it's over 50, and there is a surcharge of up to $75 to ship that box.
What?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
See, I heard for the longest time that the reason that it was only available is because there was a shortage, but it's just that the costs have gone up so much.
Yeah, there's no shortage of what? Salt? No, no, the cost have gone up. That box, take one bag out, and now it weighs like 46 or 47 pounds, cost measurably, just a huge amount cheaper than 4 bags. So shipping 3 bags, because 3 bags is under 50, is the only way you can go. It's just way too expensive to ship a 70 or a 64-pound box of salt. So we have the same thing. We'll sell the salt, and we are selling it, and it's either it's the only way it's sold over the internet is 3 bags that make 150 gallons. And the bucket you mentioned is cool because everybody just puts everything in a round bucket. And think about carrying that round bucket full of salt, heavy, and it's smacking up against your leg and your knee and your ankle, and it's just a pain. What we've done is we've cut the bucket in half. So the side of the bucket, which is the back, that is against your body, is flat. And then it's kind of a half moon shape when you're looking down on it. And so you can carry it straight along your body without it smashing your leg or ankle. And it's a much easier on your back to carry this. And it makes a nice front panel to see everything. So those little things we've thought about, and it does look cool. Plus it has a function of making it easy to carry, so you don't have to hold your arm out, so you're not smacking your leg with that big round heavy bucket. And if you're going to be at Reef Stock in 2 weeks, we've shipped a couple of buckets, which we normally do, to Reef Stock, and they're going to be in the raffle.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, with some of the new ASF pumps and wave makers and DC pumps. We're premiering the whole line of ASF stuff.
Oh, I'm excited. And if you want to hear about the ASF line, because there is a bunch of products that are fantastic. We've done podcasts on them, like the pumps specifically. Let me know. I'll send you a link, or you can go find them.
Ooh, and I think I have a surprise, Hillary.
Ooh.
We have the reef shots in stock.
Oh, no.
Yep, they came in. They shipped some in for the shows in the little shots, all loaded and ready to go.
Oh my gosh, that's exciting.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. This is a novel, easy way to add different like trace elements and vitamins and probiotics and calcium and magnesium to your tank, and we call it reef shots. And
these are not shots that you are taking. These are shots that go in your aquarium, just to specify.
Yeah. What are the questions we get on salt? One, mixing it up. You really should have a dedicated system and a pump to do that. And
what about storage?
I with a lid on it and a pump moving it, there's really not a problem. And you don't really have to have a heater, because I'm assuming it's stored in your house. Now, if it's stored in your garage in Vegas, that's super hot, or, in your garage in Wisconsin in the middle of winter, well, that might freeze. It's too cold.
I meant specifically like the salt itself without having water in it, like the buckets. Does it? I've had salt in the past that, like, as soon as you open it, even if you close it, it clumps up and it makes it almost impossible to break that apart.
Yeah. So what's happening there is that the chemicals are dried, but they're very hydroscopic, meaning they want to suck moisture right out of the air. So with the instant ocean, even the salt in the buckets, there's a bag. You open it up and there's a bag. The salt's in a bag in a bucket. That way you can close that up, and you should close that up and keep it as sealed as you can, because the salt wants to take moisture right out of the air. And as it does that, it starts to harden up and it makes it hard. And you have to get in there and, chop it all up and bang it all up. So the storage is as airtight in a dry environment as you can provide. You definitely don't want to just keep it open. If you've not sealed your bag of salt, after a while you come back and you're going to notice it's kind of liquidy and just a mess. And that's because it's taking the moisture right out of the atmosphere.
So in addition to having a brute trash can or something to store your salt water, if you don't have a way to store your salt, maybe consider getting a Tupperware container, not a Tupperware, but like a Rubbermaid tote or something to put your salt in.
Yeah, definitely keep it sealed. And we do have on the my-asf.com website, we'll have an analysis because we have lab analysis that will give you the different trace elements and levels that are in the salts. And we'll be doing more videos on mixing it and using it with the other different products that we're introducing.
Now, you just mentioned something like a lab analysis. Is there do they have those for each of the batches of salt that they make?
They have them for I don't think it's every batch. They do a quality analysis on a regular basis, but it's not by batch. I'll have to dig into that. That's a good question. Some places don't do any quality analysis, but they definitely do quality analysis.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard Thomas talk about it. So I was trying to remember what it was and how often they do it, but I know that there's a lot that goes into them making salt.
Right. Well, there's a number on each bucket or each bag, and that relates back to the analysis. So they can trace it. So if you say there's a problem or something, we're going to ask for the number that's on the container, and then that can be traced back to the production day and cycle, and they'll know the raw materials, so they can trace that back.
That's a lot of detail that they have.
Yes. But that's what happens when you have a real quality control mechanism. You can trace things back. And for more information, you can go to the website. Even Dr. Tim's Aquatics will be posting, and we just got this salt in. And so give us a little bit of time to get better pictures and usage and things up, but that'll be going up because we didn't want to put a bunch of stuff up, get everyone excited and go, oh, it's coming, it's not available. No, it's available. We're actually real excited about it.
Yes, I've been waiting for this since we had it at, was it Global last year?
Yes, it was Global last year. Can we blame the pandemic?
We can blame shipping.
We definitely can blame shipping. This salt arrived in December, and we didn't get it out of customs until the end of January. But we're going to fix that supply chain, so things will be running here smooth in a while. But it's how the world's running right now. There's just bottlenecks in some places, but that's all good. So we have it. And it's, I really stand behind it. I've been in other places. I've operated or done the quality control, like I said, for one of the biggest salt manufacturers, and there's nothing like how they make the salt in France. It's just wonderful. Everyone, that's been an introduction to the new Reef Evolution Sea Salt by ASF. In partnership with Dr. Tim's Aquatics, and you're going to be seeing a lot of new stuff from us and from them this year. We're pretty excited. We haven't been sitting around. We've been doing a lot of development and a lot of new stuff with products and additives and pumps and lots of neat stuff. So come out to a show. We're going to be at every one of them and more. And don't forget, we do reptiles now too.
Yes, we do.
Okay, everyone. This has been Dr. Tim and Hillary for another session of Dr. Tim's Aquatics podcast. Good fish.